The Last Heist of Silas Cole. The year was 1890, and the sun hung low over the Arizona desert, casting long, bleeding shadows across the sand. Dust rode the wind like a ghost, and with it came the faint echo of hooves, slow, tired, and heavy. The man on the horse was Silas Cole, once known across the West as the Silver Ghost, a name that had haunted wanted posters for nearly 20 years. He had robbed trains from Texas to Montana, stolen gold from the very banks that funded sheriffs, and vanished into the desert before dawn. But now, his hair was gray, his hands trembled when he rolled a cigarette, and the fire in his eyes had dimmed. Silas had settled in a dying town called Dry Creek, running a small saloon that served more silence than whiskey. The days were long, the nights longer. He often sat on the porch, staring at the horizon, remembering the thrill of galloping through moonlight with a stolen fortune and the law chasing behind him. But that was years ago. He told himself he was done. The ghost was buried. One evening, as the sun melted into the mesas, a shadow stepped through the saloon doors. Jed Hawkins, his old partner, still lean but harder, meaner, eyes burning with restless greed. He carried a revolver on his hip and a smile that Silas had never trusted. Greater than, been a long time, Silas, Jed said, dropping a dust-covered hat onto the counter. Heard you're playing bartender these days. Never thought I'd see the ghost pouring drinks. Silas didn't look up. Ghost's dead. Buried right here in Dry Creek. Jed chuckled. Then maybe it's time we dug him up. Silas poured himself a glass. What do you want, Jed? Jed leaned closer, lowering his voice. Denver Express. Leaves tomorrow night. Government shipment, gold bars, 6 crates. Headin', east through Copper Ridge. Silas froze. The name Copper Ridge struck a chord deep in his bones. That was where he'd pulled his first big job, years ago. Where the legend of the Silver Ghost was born. Greater than, you're too old for this, Silas muttered. Maybe. But you're still smart enough to make it work, Jed replied. One last job, partner. Enough to buy you peace for the rest of your days. Peace. Silas almost laughed. There was no peace for men like him, only ghosts and regrets. Still, something in him stirred. Maybe it was pride, maybe the hunger for one last ride, or maybe the simple truth that a man never really outruns who he is. That night, Silas sat alone in his saloon, cleaning his old Winchester rifle. The metal was worn, the wood cracked, but it still felt right in his hands. He packed dynamite, a coil of rope, and the same amulet he'd worn since his wife died, a small silver coin she'd given him before the fever took her. At dawn, he saddled his horse, Rusty, a faithful old stallion with one cloudy eye. Together they rode toward Copper Ridge, where the red rocks rose like broken teeth against the sky. By sunset, the two men lay in the brush overlooking the railroad tracks. The Denver Express would arrive just after dark. They could already hear it, the distant hum of iron wheels and the sharp cry of steam. Greater than, you sure about this, Silas? Jed asked, lighting the fuse on a small stick of dynamite. You still got the hands for it. Hands are shaky, Silas said, loading his rifle, but the mind remembers. The train roared into view, black engine gleaming, sparks flying. They threw the dynamite near the tracks. The explosion sent sand flying, and the train screeched to a halt. Men shouted, doors slammed, and the smoke turned the desert night into chaos. Silas and Jed rode in, masks covering their faces. Shots rang out. Silas's heart pounded like it hadn't in years. He climbed onto the car, smashed the lock, and found the crates, gleaming gold in the lantern light. But then he heard something that stopped him cold, a scream. A young girl's voice. Through the smoke, he saw her, no more than 10 years old, clutching a doll, eyes wide with terror. A child, trapped in the passenger car. The daughter of a government officer, maybe. It didn't matter. Jed was shouting, forget her, Silas. Grab the gold. But Silas couldn't. In the girl's face, he saw his wife, and the child they'd never had. Something inside him cracked. He dropped the gold bar from his hand and ran toward the passenger car. He tore the door open just as flames licked the floorboards. The dynamite blast had shaken the bridge ahead, one more jolt, and the whole train would go down into the canyon. He lifted the girl into his arms. Hold on, sweetheart, he said softly. Behind him, Jed screamed, what the hell are you doing? Silas didn't answer. He jumped off the car, rolling down the slope with the girl in his arms. The world exploded behind them, fire, smoke, gold flying through the air like sparks. When the dust settled, the Denver Express was still standing, battered, burning, but safe. The bridge had collapsed just behind it. The girl was crying but alive. Silas lay on the rocks below, bleeding, his body broken. Jed was gone, disappeared into the night with whatever gold he could carry. The girl crawled to Silas's side. Mister, are you okay? Silas smiled weakly. Never better. He pressed his amulet into her small hand. Keep that. For luck. Who are you? She whispered. He looked at the sky, where the stars were just beginning to appear. Just a ghost, miss. Just a ghost. And with that, Silas Cole, the silver ghost, took his last breath. When the sheriff arrived the next morning, he found no trace of Jed Hawkins, but near the wreckage, he discovered a silver coin glinting in the sand and a battered cowboy hat lying beside it. The papers later called it a failed robbery, said the old outlaw had tried one last score and died trying. But the train's conductor told a different story, that an outlaw had saved the passengers instead of robbing them. Years later, travelers passing through Copper Ridge swore they saw a lone rider in the moonlight, a figure dressed in gray, hat pulled low, rifle slung across his back. He never spoke, never stopped. The last heist of Silas Cole. The year was 1890, and the sun hung low over the Arizona desert, casting long, bleeding shadows across the sand. Dust rode the wind like a ghost,